Now that the verdict has been read and the Delphi murder case has been closed, I find myself feeling like there's something missing. When Kline was first looked into in 2017, he was connected to Libby and Abby by his communication with Libby via social media. Police officers gave him a visit and searched his home and devices. At this time, he wasn't arrested or viewed as a suspect, most likely because he was nowhere near the crime scene at the time of the murders. They found criminal activity in 2017, but sat on that activity and didn't arrest him for it until 2022.
For the first time, Indiana State Police are acknowledging their investigation into Keegan Kline as part of the investigation into the Delphi murders. Court records revealed Kline is the creator of the fake social media profile Anthony Shots.
It's been a week since Indiana State Police first told us they were looking for more information into that profile. Now the Carroll County Sheriff tells us they've gotten about 500 attempts since.
State Police also acknowledged today that a secondary investigation from information received during the Delphi investigation led them to Kline. You may remember they first learned about him in 2017, but police didn't arrest Kline on child porn charges until 2020.
So Indiana State Police acknowledged that time gap today, but didn't go into explaining why it happened any further. They did say this in a quote: "We do not believe that any person has done anything intentionally wrong, but we will continue to critically evaluate our efforts."
There's still a lot we here at 13 News don't know about this investigation, and we need to be clear, police have never said Kline is a person of interest in the Delphi murders investigation.
State Police did release a statement as well, saying, "We know there is enormous interest in the why of everything we do, but we cannot and will not speculate. One day you will have the opportunity to see and know what we do, and we look forward to that day."
There are multiple reasons why police officers would do this, but all the reasons are to help aid investigators in obtaining more knowledge than they previously had access to. Surveillance of the perpetrator during this time can lead to connections to other criminals not previously on police radar. Sense of false security in the perpetrator can lead to criminal slip-ups. Keegan Kline was arrested in 2020. Keegan Kline was taken into temporary custody outside of the jail August 25, 2022.
And connected to the Delphi murders through the Anthony Shots fake social media profile recently met with the Indiana State Police outside of jail.
Rich Nye is here with new developments in the case against Keegan Kline. Rich?
Keegan Kline has sat in the Miami County Jail for over 2 years on child pornography and exploitation charges. He has never been charged with the murders of Libby German and Abby Williams. Court records unsealed this week showed that the prosecutor's office and Kline's attorney agreed for Indiana State Police to take temporary custody of Kline outside the jail. The judge granted that request Friday. We don't know why investigators wanted to meet with Kline or where they took him and what he may have told them or showed them. Kline admitted in court records to creating the Anthony Shots social media profile to meet underage girls and receive sexually explicit photos. That catfish profile was one of the last communications with Libby German before she died. The bodies of the girls were found near a trail in Delphi back on February 14, 2017.
October 13, 2022, investigators executed a search warrant of Richard Allen's residence and found a gun that was linked to the Delphi murders via an unspent bullet that was forensically linked to the gun that Allen's owned.
Day 10 of testimony is focusing on the statements given by Richard Allen to state investigators before he was arrested. October 2022. That is when investigators first sat down for a formal interrogation of Richard Allen, and jurors today got to see actual video of that interview between Allen and state investigators. It started off with everyone being relaxed, with Richard Allen offering up information very freely, cooperating with investigators. But then, when the investigators told him they wanted to search his phone and they wanted to conduct a search warrant at his home, the tone of the interview changed. At that point, Allen said, "Your attitude toward me has definitely changed. This feels like you're interrogating me. You've known from the beginning I was out there. I told you that." Steve Mullen, An investigator for the state said, "We're not mad at you. We're not upset with you. We're just trying to get to the truth." Richard Allen said, "I think we're done." He said, "It's not me. You're not going to convince me it's me. I had nothing to do with those murders." At that point, they allowed Richard Allen to go, but they did serve a search warrant on his home, and 2 weeks later they sat down with him again, this time with much tougher questions. State Police Lieutenant Jerry Holman is the one who conducted this interview, and he presented evidence that came from the state crime lab indicating that a cartridge found at the crime scene had cycled through one of Richard Allen's guns.
On November 3rd, 2022, prosecutors in the upcoming trial for Kegan Kline asked a judge to drop 5 out of the 30 child-related charges against him.
Talk about the decision to keep the PC closed.
Well, that's a part of this entire process. This is not a typical, usual homicide investigation. They all matter. But this one is different. And Nick McClellan, the prosecutor here, has been a really good partner and made the decision to attempt to do that, and the judge agreed. So that's all I'm going to say about it.
Can you talk about what brought you to Mr. Allen?
No, I can't.
Can you talk about if he's related to Kegan Kline in any way?
I can't talk about any of the facts associated with the case. Emily, I can't.
So how did investigators come across Richard Allen as a suspect? I'd argue that it was Kegan Kline who finally told officers about the connection between himself and the true perpetrator of the crime. I'd show evidence for my theory by noting that the timeline between police taking temporary custody of Kline and the arrest and connection between Allen and the Delphi murders. Also, at this time, I would like to take note the odd wording in some of the court filings in this case, including the affidavit of probable cause. A sworn affidavit setting forth the facts and circumstances known to law enforcement of Carroll County as the basis for probable cause to arrest without warrant or to establish probable cause for issuance of an arrest warrant for the above named defendant. That the hearsay statements of witnesses contained herein are considered reliable and credible due to the witnesses' personal knowledge and or are contributed by the totality of the circumstances. Counsel agree with the court that the public interest is best served by transparency, but that certain pleadings should remain sealed. That the transport orders previously entered and future orders shall remain sealed for security purposes, and that the defense ex parte motions and related orders shall remain sealed pursuant to long established case law. Why would police officers want this information sealed? Well, unfortunately, criminals tend to learn from each other. If at all possible, we want to keep our criminals dumb. I can't say this with 100% certainty that I'm right about my theory. However, I believe I found enough evidence for myself to believe that my initial thoughts on the case could possibly have some merit. So what do I think happened? I think that Kline used his account as Anthony Schatz to lure Libby and Abby to a secluded area with the promise of meeting each other. It's possible that Kline targeted Libby based on location, or that he was in contact with her by random accident and later learned her location. I believe that Allen and Kline communicated with each other prior to February 13th, 2017. It's most likely that they both bonded over unspeakable attractions towards children. I believe that Allen knew that Kline was going to lure Libby to a secluded area, and he may not have known about Abby's presence. What police don't want criminals to know is how Allen and Kline communicated with each other. Because this is most likely the redacted information I would argue police don't want criminals to know about. Instead of meeting Anthony Schatz or Kline, the girls met up with Richard Allen. Richard Allen was prepared to control the situation by using a gun to threaten the girls. I honestly don't think he expected there to be 2 girls at the meetup, which may have thrown him off. Allen was criminally dumb, yet efficient, which leads me to believe that he had help planning and calculating what he was going to do. As for the sticks covering the bodies of the young girls, he didn't meet Abby and Libby because his fantasy was to kill the girls. He didn't want to see them dead. He wanted to undo what he had done. Not because he felt bad for murdering the girls, but because his sexual gratification most likely consisted of a fantasy where the girls were alive.